Michael Whitty. He has actually he's called a super attorney from the law firm. He's with the law firm of Freeborn and Peters. You recently quoted on CNBC for estate plans, underfunded estate plans. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Chantel, and thanks Tony. And my line of business is as an estate planning attorney, but I focus on closely held business owners in particular.
Can you tell us what you do with businesses in particular and how you help businesses in the family office area?
Yes, in the business owner space, which overlaps a lot with the family office space, I work with clients to prepare succession plans if they do intend to plan to turn over their business to family members, or if they want to have another exit strategy. I'm familiar with doing those as well. And we can also put in place shareholder agreements and buy-sell agreements that will, facilitate transfers and exits that are anticipated or, can be predicted. And I'm able to work with clients who want to do another exit strategy other than leaving their business to family members, if that's what they want to do. But at first I start with asking general questions that I would ask of pretty much anyone about what they want to do with their wealth, how they would like to transfer it safely and preserve it, and put together the answers to the questions every good estate plan needs to answer, which are who gets what, how and when do they get it, and who's in charge. And on the who gets what, if it's a family business owner or a family office, we have to deal with how we transition the ownership of that, in addition to other forms of wealth that they do have.
Let me ask you, what about businesses that want to scale? Are you able to help businesses scale? Like, do you prepare like a private placement offering memorandum for businesses that want to scale themselves in the family office environment?
Well, my firm can do that. That's not something I do myself individually, but we can do that as part of the business planning side as opposed to the estate planning side. And we have several attorneys in my corporate strategy group that would be able to work on scaling things up or issuing new equity or selling the company, perhaps selling a portion of the company to maybe a private equity firm or a strategic buyer like a competitor.
What about in the cases where someone goes through a divorce as a business owner? Give us some feedback on that type of issue.
Did you ask about a business owner going through a divorce?
Yes.
All right, well, the key there is that unless the couple is going to continue in business together as partners, which is a very rare circumstance that people want to do that in the case of a divorce, then the essential thing there is to start with a very solid valuation of the company and then find a way to divide up the value of that in a way that the business retains continuity and effective leadership and ownership, even though perhaps part of the value needs to be transferred to the non-participating spouse. But I have worked on those kinds of engagements.
What about the issue where there are children involved, and let's say one child has the ability to take over the company and the other kids do not? Do you work in issues? Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, we have to deal with that all the time. If there are one or more children who are able to take over the business and take on leadership and ownership roles, a lot of times not all of them can. It's pretty rare that all of the children want to and are able to continue the family business operations. So we have to plan for what we want to do for the other children so that we provide for them equitably, if not equally, and at the same time preserve that continuity of ownership and leadership in the company so that the company doesn't run into conflicts or other kinds of governance problems because of the transition if the succession of the ownership and the leadership isn't handled properly.
Well, this is probably an interesting question. What about people that have an international issue where maybe they have heads overseas or relatives that want to be part of the business but aren't part of it because they're not part of the domestic area where the business is located? I know it's a complicated issue, But how does that work and how does that fit in with the family office for business?
Well, I've worked with clients like that, and what we typically do in that case is because the overseas child is both not going to be participating in the operating company and is overseas, we focus on the kinds of transfers to them that are going to be both good for governance for the family as a whole and also tax efficient. So in a case like that, we might provide a life insurance policy that will go to those children who are overseas. So, it's clean, it's easy, it's tax efficient, and you know that they're going to get it, and it's not going to interfere with the operation of the company.
You do work with a lot of people that you work with financial advisors as well as with other attorneys in putting together these issues with businesses.
Absolutely. I am a big believer in a multidisciplinary approach. I've given a separate presentation on making sure that the estate plan and the financial plan are properly coordinated. I'm a CFP, but I don't actually use that to do financial planning. I got that mainly so I could work better with my clients' other advisors, understanding their roles and their products and services. And that has paid off pretty well.
I see a tie together here in a lot of different areas. What I see is a tie together with reverse mortgages. Have you worked with a reverse mortgage person like Kevin?
Actually, I have. It's been a number of years back, but Kevin's presentation has made me alert to the advances in that field and how, especially in the high net worth space, it can be very valuable. I've long been a big advocate of my high net worth clients having an extra access to some kind of cash funding, even if it's just a standby line of credit, so that they don't have to sell an asset when an unexpected cash need arises.
I'm going to tie you all the way back to Jason Ma too, because when you're talking about businesses and family business owners, how do you work with getting that next generation together? But that's where Jason Ma fits in.
Well, that's a big issue, and you have to take some time, talk with in this case, typically children in the next generation, could be grandchildren, sometimes some nieces and nephews. You have to talk with them, get them all together. Also need to talk with them separately sometimes so that they can feel free to express themselves, and then come up with a governance plan that addresses the concerns of both the family and the business, and make sure that transition and succession are handled smoothly, and you try to minimize conflict as much as possible. I've been a fan of the TV series Succession, and that's a great example of what not to do.
Right. You're about to ask a question, Tony. Go ahead.
Actually, just a point that I'd like to raise, Mike. You talk about business. There's business succession. There's estate planning, and those can be a little bit different in terms of. And I run into this all the time because this is part of what I do. But valuation issues for estate planning, where the purpose or the goal, I guess, of the exercise is to minimize estate taxes. Now, that is not necessarily the value that you would want to go to when you talk to maybe somebody who's looking to buy the business.
That's absolutely right. And we encourage our clients to get an appraisal that's aimed for gift and estate tax purposes pretty early in the process if they're thinking about selling their company. And then we do some income tax and estate tax planning transactions, taking advantage of that lower value before things are sort of cleaned up to get the company ready for sale. And it's already got a lower value than it would on the sale date. And then we do these kinds of gift and estate tax planning transactions. The tax savings can usually pay for all of the legal fees on the entire transaction for selling the company, and probably several times over. So just to put it in that perspective, it really opens up a lot of eyes and encourages our clients to go ahead and do that planning.
So essentially, I'm sorry, Chantel, essentially, you can have sort of two different views of the value of the company, depending on what the purpose is. I'm using this as a question to you because I run into this a lot of times with my clients, my own clients who get confused about that. How can it be worth something in this sense, and then when I sell it, something more?
Well, part of it has to do with valuation adjustments, including discounts for lack of marketability and lack of control. And those are real. They reflect real world conditions. And so when you're transferring just a part of a business rather than the entire thing together, those discounts are very much applicable. But then if you are looking at maybe selling the entire company, then you're looking at the enterprise value, which doesn't have those discounts.
Absolutely.
Another point too. I think that what you're talking about too, planning is such an important factor and it should be ongoing, because a lot of the things you read about in the papers, the infighting and families squabbling over a business to the point that they wind up losing a lot in the process. Can you share why the importance of planning is not only to set an estate plan, but to follow and have it ongoing?
Well, definitely. With some good planning, both on the succession side and on the estate side, you can greatly reduce the risk of conflict. There's no guarantee you'll avoid it altogether, but you can greatly reduce it, and that can do tremendous amounts of preservation of wealth. So, because when these family fights happen, usually the only people who get richer are the litigators.
Your side of the fence, right? Exactly. What I want to mention here, though, because that happens a lot, is that when the states are drawn out too long, that's when the state also is eaten up, not only by the attorney, but also by the IRS. So in a state, you diminish the value of the property and everything involved in that, whether it's the business or anything they own, if they don't properly plan. So it's important to see your attorney and your estate planners, at least annually.
Well, I do prefer that my clients talk with me annually, even if it's just a sort of a lunch or something like that, just to check in and see how things are going and whether there have been any changes that maybe we need to address in updating the plan. And it's nice if that can be a multidisciplinary lunch. So we're meeting with the CPA there and the chief investment advisor, and we're getting the different perspectives and seeing the whole picture. That can really help, and certainly can help avoid things where you get a conflict between the investment plan and the estate plan.
Yeah. So their estate plan, and as businesses begin to scale themselves, they need to be more frequently to come visit their attorney. Am I right on that one?
Well, I would say once a year at least. Quarterly is good, semi-annually is good. If it's, and we're just talking about a short meeting, kind of see what's in the works and where things are going. In terms of longer meetings, that might be once a year.
I want to ask. I know I want to ask you one other question. What makes you different? What sets you apart from the other attorneys in your area of law?
Well, I think it's mainly the multidisciplinary approach and the experience with closely held business owners and family offices.
And that is something that I espouse very, very closely. You need somebody and I'm going to use a sports term here, but somebody to be the quarterback, somebody who can bring in or hand off or throw the pass, if you will, and bring in somebody who can, since we have the people on, address the leadership of the next generation, address things like unlocking wealth through whether it's a reverse mortgage or some other thing, bringing in the right people, because one person can't do everything, and nor should they. So I really, like you, I believe in a very interdisciplinary approach, getting people, all on board doing their jobs.
Yeah, we're definitely on the same page there. Thanks, Tony.
Good.
That's one of the benefits of family office. In a family office environment, you're not a one-person show. You are working with a collaborative team of people. There's a lot that I'm a wealth management person. That's what I do, period. I don't conduct law. I don't do reverse mortgages. I prepared my own kid for college, but that's as far as I went with it. It's important to have a collaborative team of people in a family office environment. Anything else you want to add for our audience, Kevin? Mike.
You got 1 minute.
Yes, and just that when we accomplish this, it's often a feeling of great relief that a great plan has been put in place. A good succession plan often takes more than a year to do all the necessary steps, but a good core estate plan can be done in just a few weeks. So it kind of depends on the nature of the engagement.
I will share this with you guys on my own personal experiences at working with a client. One of my clients passed away many years ago. I remember the first time a client of mine passed away. We had done all the planning. I'm one of those planners who plans not just once a year. I meet my clients quarterly. But when she passed away out of the country, came back, found out she passed away, I fell apart. But what good part was everything was set in place. The trusts, the wills, all of it, everything was set in place. And I really am grateful that I was trained properly to do things the right way. And I give that to attorneys and all the financial advisors I work with on a team. It's important to work with a team of professionals. You can't do it all on your own. Do we have much time left, or have we hit the top of the hour there?
We have time. We have time for Q&A, and if we could, I'd love to move on to that.